What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the FF Ballbusters podcast. Thank you for joining us. It is Thursday, June 15th. We are inching ever closer to the NFL season. Still got a ways to go, but excited to get into another video for you guys. My name is Eric. That's my co-host, Will. How you feeling this morning, man?
Hey man, I'm feeling good. I'm excited to finally kind of make it full circle back to this list. I feel like it's
Yeah.
been a long time coming and we finally made it back.
Yeah. As Will alluded to, this is our final installment of our Dynasty tier list rankings. We finally get to the quarterback position. I'm sure we will be revisiting these at some point, but this is our wrap up of this series so far for this portion of the off season. We've put out a bunch of really good videos so far with all the other positions, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check those out yet, I would highly recommend that you do so. Also, if you're enjoying the content, if you like this video, any of the other videos, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment, do all that good YouTube stuff. It helps us out so much, more than you even know. So thank you very much if you can help us out with that. But without further ado, let's get into this quarterback tier list video. Since I'm doing all the intro stuff, Will, I'm going to kick it to you
hmm
for the beginning of the tier list here.
Absolutely. And guys, we always start at the top, and it's easiest to start at the top. It's the guy who's the first ballot Hall of Famer already at age 27 on the team that throws the ball 38 times a game at least. It's Patrick Mahomes up there at the
Yeah.
top. He's just the guy that we haven't seen anybody like him in a long time, like in a long, long time. And he's just taken the NFL by storm. Don't see him not doing that anytime soon.
Yeah, there's no question about this. Also, just real quick, if you haven't seen the other videos, this is intended to be a top 12 list, but we just keep going with the quarterback that finishes out the top 12. We finish that tier, just so you
hmm
guys know. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he's the best quarterback in the world,
Yeah.
hands down, no question. He's been a top 5 quarterback in fantasy points per game every single year of his career, other than the rookie year where he sat behind Alex Smith. He's averaging 23.5 points per season. He hit 25 plus points per game twice already. And he's just incredibly consistent, has the most job security in all of football. Like there's no question
Great
he's the
head coach
quarterback
as
one.
well. Great head coach as
Yeah.
well, and Andy Reid. It's the perfect scenario.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, no argument there. I'll get to my QB2. I do have Josh Allen in this spot. Um, for me, he's just a great passer of the football, over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns in each of his past 3 seasons. He's also an incredible runner with over 100 attempts in each of the past 4 seasons and 6+ rushing touchdowns in every year of his career. Um, he's arguably like the second or third best quarterback in football in just regular NFL football and incredibly productive for fantasy.
hmm
I don't have a ton more to say. He's just a baller.
Yeah, it's like you said. He's everything you want in a quarterback. He's got the rushing floor. He's a great thrower. People kind of downgrade him a little bit after last year, just because second half of the season was a little bit rough, but he was injured, so that kind of makes
Yeah.
sense. And don't expect that going forward. So definitely Josh Allen up here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't have the numbers in front of me. Again, we mentioned this, I think, in our quarterback tier list for like the for
Redraft.
redraft.
hmm
Yeah, prior to his elbow injury to his throwing arm, I think he was averaging damn near like 30 points a game. It was ridiculous. Like 30 fantasy points a game.
Sheesh. Yeah, he was going
So
stupid.
he was an absolute cheat code. Um, but yeah, so he's my QB2. Who would your QB3 be?
My QB3 in this tier, as of right now, it's Jalen Hurts.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts. He's got the high octane offense with the Eagles. Obviously, they haven't taken any steps back really since last year. They lost Miles Sanders, but they gained DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. The receiving core is the same. Dallas Goedert's back healthy. And just in Jalen Hurts, you get a quarterback who can run with a good rushing floor, and also you kind of get a goal line back baked into all of that as
yeah,
well because he got
yeah,
a lot of red zone touches last year, and I see that continuing, especially with the goal line push just not being outlawed. It's just still a thing, so I don't see that changing at all.
yeah. You get like a top 5 quarterback
Yeah.
plus Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's also in this tier for me. He is also my QB3. Really impressive sophomore season where he got over 20 fantasy points per game, and then took another massive leap into year 3 where he really established himself as a good passer, and also finished as the QB1 in points per game. So that was incredibly impressive. Even in games where we saw that his rushing numbers were dipping, he was still able to deliver great fantasy weeks with his arm. Um, and yeah, like you mentioned, one of the best weapons groups in the NFL, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Hmm.
The only other downgrade that you didn't mention is they lost Isaac Seumalo, the
True.
guard. Um, but still, I expect that offensive line to be fantastic again. He just signed a massive extension and he's about to turn 25. So hard to argue with him not being in this top tier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So for me, that
Hmm.
does end the tier. Does it do the same for you?
It does for me as well, yes. These are the
Okay.
three that I feel like are the sure things. Absolutely, you're going forward and performing at a high level.
Yeah, no questions asked. Okay. So let's get into the A tier. I'll let you kick us off once again.
The A tier, I feel like, is easy to kick off because it's someone who maybe could have made it into the S tier, but I'm still kind of waiting to see how things go for it with the team. But I'm extremely optimistic going forward, and that's Mr. Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
Somebody that we've seen end with one of the best fantasy football seasons of all time. Not just one of the
The
best ever,
best.
the best of all time.
The best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just somebody who we expect to go keep getting better going forward. He's a great passer, as much as people like to act like he is not. And with the team moving forward the way they are with Todd Monken as the OC, should be more pass friendly, should be opening up a lot more in that offense. And just the rushing threat that we see out of Lamar Jackson is the best that we have ever seen. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and I hope to see that continue going forward. We may see somebody else emerge as well. We'll talk about later on this list, but Lamar Jackson for sure is up there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in full agreement. He's also my QB4. I echo a lot of the same sentiments, and then I have some more things to talk about. But like you said, greatest rushing quarterback of all time already.
Hmm.
Owns the most prolific fantasy season of all time at 28 points per game already. Just got a bag. He's only 26. Those are all fantastic. There are some concerns. There's a reason that he's not in that S tier with the guys that we talked about. He's only thrown for over 3,000 yards once. He missed 12 games due to injury in the last 4 years, and his fantasy points per game have decreased every year since his breakout campaign in 2019. I acknowledge all of that.
Hmm.
Those are definitely red flags. But there's also plenty of reasons for optimism as well. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman, who had been decreasing Lamar's pass attempts in each of the past 3 seasons, has now been replaced by Todd Monken, who you mentioned. Um, the last time that we saw Monken call plays in the NFL, his team averaged over 320 passing yards per game with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. And for reference, that's the fifth most passing yards per game in NFL history. So we're talking about a guy that wants to air it out, and that's all we've heard so far this offseason about what the Ravens are going to be doing. So I'm really excited to see that. And then on top of all that, the Ravens have now assembled the best weapons group we've ever seen around Lamar Jackson with Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, OBJ, J.K. Dobbins. Like, the future is bright, and I'm very excited for what the season holds.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
All right. So that is our QB4. Let's go to my QB5, who is going to be Joe Burrow.
Joe Shiesty.
Joe Shiesty. I think you could probably make the argument that he has the second most job security in the NFL, right behind Patrick Mahomes, just in terms of like actual NFL play. And I think in Dynasty that does matter. With not that Jalen Hurts or Lamar or any of these other guys don't have job security, but I don't know, we can basically guarantee that Joe Burrow is going to be the quarterback of the Bengals for the next
Yeah,
decade.
he means a lot to his city, I think is what Eric's trying to say. Like, he's going to be there. The team's behind him. The fans are behind him. It's just, he's there. And in terms of his play, he's just performed
Yeah,
at every level. He's performed at every
yeah.
level.
And I guess he has torn his ACL, but like with his play style, you're not as worried about injuries. I don't know, all sorts of stuff. Just the job security is there. He's an outstanding NFL quarterback, obviously very good fantasy asset as well. We've yet to see him be like a super high end fantasy producer. Last year was his first year eclipsing the 20 fantasy points per game mark with 21.9. He did finish with less than 20 points in half of his games last year. And for comparison's sake, guys like Jalen Hurts, he only did that 2 times, only went below 20 points twice. Josh Allen only did it 4 times. That's not me saying he's bad. He's fantastic. It's just we haven't seen him produce at like a league-winning level. The way that we've seen the guys above him on this list do so far in their careers.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I love Joe Shiesty here too. Great weapons group, amazing weapons group around him. Honestly,
Yeah.
Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, and T Higgins alone is just amazing to have for any quarterback. Tyler Boyd,
Yeah.
great compliment to those two. And I'm forgetting who they have at tight end right now because it's been quite a carousel over there in Cincinnati.
It's like Irv Smith now,
Yeah,
I
it
think,
is
is
Irv
their
Smith,
number one. Yeah.
who has been one of those guys who's been on the fantasy radar for like the last 3 years, and hopefully he can find some success over there as well. But
We'll see.
we'll
We'll
see.
see. All right, so
Okay.
that's the QB5. Let's hear your QB6.
Yeah, my QB6 at this next spot, another young quarterback as well. I'm taking a look down. I can't see. Oh, here he is next to Justin Fields. I got Mr. Justin Herbert going up for the
Yes, sir.
Chargers. Again,
Yep.
another high octane offense, another amazing weapons group. Probably even better than Joe Burrow's, if you ask me, because Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston. Well, I wouldn't know if it's better. Maybe more well-rounded.
I don't know if
More
I'd say it's
well-rounded.
better.
More
I
well-rounded.
think the number 3 is better than Tyler Boyd, but it's
Yeah.
hard to argue against Jamar Chase.
Well, Austin. I think
versus anybody.
Austin Eckler's better than Joe Mixon as well.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sure. I can see
So,
that.
but Jamar Chase, it's tough. It's tough. That guy's great. But in terms of weapon groups, Justin Herbert has a great weapons group around him. He's been performing since his rookie year, and he's getting better and better. And we're hoping that the team can start airing out the ball out a little bit more. Throws kind of went down last season. It seemed like they kind of put Justin Herbert on a leash. Hopefully, with the team bringing in another wide receiver in Quentin Johnston in the first round, they're hoping to do the opposite next year, kind of open
Yeah.
things up a little bit more like they did towards the end of the season. But what do you think about this spot? Do you think Justin Herbert belongs here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've been in agreement with every single ranking here so far. And I think there's a lot to kind of dive into with Justin Herbert after a really disappointing year last year. But let's start with the positives. So Justin Herbert had maybe the most impressive rookie season we've ever seen at the quarterback position. And that also translated to fantasy as he averaged over 22 points per game as a rookie, which is astronomical. Then he followed that up with another incredible season in year 2, also over 22 points per game, and he finishes the QB2 overall. He holds the record for most touchdowns, yards, and completions of any quarterback through their first 2 years of their career. And then last season, things came off the rails a little bit. Keenan Allen and Jalen Guyton were both injured for most of the year. Mike Williams missed a bunch of games. Rashawn Slater, the all-pro offensive tackle, missed most of the season. Corey Linsley, I think he was also all-pro center, missed a few games as well. And Justin Herbert himself suffered a rib cartilage fracture in week 2 that clearly affected him for a good chunk of the season. So I think injuries played a massive part in what was a really disappointing season. And you mentioned the offensive coordinator change. I think that is a big deal. They go from Joe Lombardi to Kellen Moore. I don't know how much I credit Lombardi with like the decrease in yards per attempt, because we saw a significant decrease in the average yards per attempt for Justin Herbert. It could have been a personnel issue, and the fact that, with the offensive line pieces that were injured, they had less time to throw the ball, all that stuff. But hopefully we see health come back this year, and also with Kellen Moore coming in, we see a high octane passing offense.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go to the QB7 here, and for me, it's still in this tier. Would you agree?
Yeah, still here.
Okay, so we're still in the A tier, and that's going to be Justin Fields.
Nice.
We just saw such an incredible rushing ability from Justin Fields last year. Like, it's close to what we saw from Lamar Jackson in that year that he put up the greatest fantasy season of all time.
See, Justin Fields almost broke the record last year.
Yeah, it was really close. So where was he at? He had 2022 Justin Fields.
He's about 100, maybe a little bit over 100 short.
Yeah, 1,143 rushing yards on only 160 attempts, 8 rushing touchdowns. It was ridiculous on such a horrible team, just an horrendous team. No weapons to speak of around him. Offensive line was terrible, and there are definitely question marks. We want to see Justin Fields develop as a passer. We want to see him. I think most importantly for me is develop a better pocket presence. Understand when the pocket's collapsing, how much time he has, get the ball out a little bit faster. But just what we've seen as far as investment from the team, and their commitment to improving the weapons around him. They bring in DJ Moore. They
Mhm.
have Chase Claypool now. They also added to the offensive line, so I do expect him to have a little bit more time in the pocket. I just think things are trending up, and I really do believe in Justin Fields and his improvement as a passer.
Yeah, I definitely believe I Justin Fields took a huge step up last year, especially when he actually started running the ball more and getting his feet
Yeah.
under him more. So he was electric to watch, honestly. It was super exciting to watch during that stretch, and hopefully
Yeah.
that can continue going forward. I don't see anything but it continuing going forward. Yeah, honestly, I love Justin Fields up here. The rushing floor is just amazing for him, and hoping he can take a step up as a passer. And
Oh
DJ
yeah.
Moore being there will help with that development.
Absolutely.
Now,
All right.
are we
On to
still in this?
QB8.
Are we still in this tier?
I am. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Just wanted to make sure because next up I've got Trevor Lawrence in this tier as
Yes,
well.
sir. Yep.
It's just he took a huge step up last year as a passer. We started to see kind of the reason why he was that first overall pick. I kind of had this theory that his second year in the league really was his rookie season because the Urban Meyer year was just college part two, maybe even worse than
Yeah.
college to be honest with you. But Trevor Lawrence taking a huge step up in terms of rushing. He is a sneaky rusher as well. He gets a lot of rushing attempts, a lot of rushing touchdowns as well, more than you would imagine.
Yeah.
And just the weapons group around him gets even better this year, taking a step up with adding Calvin Ridley. Obviously, they still have Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram's back again for the year. So this weapons group is looking really good. Brought in Tank Bigsby in the draft as well. Still have ETN. It's just it's an exciting group of weapons out there in Jacksonville, honestly. I could see Trevor Lawrence moving up more through these rankings as the season goes along, being honest. But yeah, I like
Yeah.
where he's at right here at this A tier for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I expect a really similar jump to what we saw from Joe Burrow
Hmm.
in his rookie year to his sophomore year. And the same way that you talked about it, like I think it would have been that rookie to sophomore year jump if it wasn't for the coaching situation that we saw with Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
So it'll just be sophomore to kind of junior NFL season here because he did have 17.4 fantasy points per game last year, which is right around what Joe Burrow was doing his rookie year. So I could see him jumping into that like 19, 20 fantasy points per game area, getting into that kind of top five, top six quarterback range. You mentioned it. Calvin Ridley joins the team. I think, he's getting hype, but maybe not enough. I really do think Calvin Ridley is a fantastic receiver and is going to be a huge difference maker for this offense. The coaching staff is great. And yeah, I just believe in Trevor Lawrence, the prospect, the quarterback. I think he's going to take leaps and bounds. And also, you mentioned the rushing as well. I think that's a really good point. I
Hmm.
think we could see that increase. Like the tendencies that we saw from him at Clemson were even higher than what we saw last year. So I think he could get maybe even more red zone work and a little bit more scrambles as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that. And so far, we haven't disagreed one time, I don't think. We
Yeah.
are really in lockstep here.
Yeah, I was about to say this is going a lot better than the redraft one. If you guys haven't seen that, definitely check it out because it was a good time. It was a fun one.
It was fun. I like agreeing with you. It makes things easy. We can keep it pushing, but man,
Top,
those arguments were very entertaining.
the top tier.
But this does finally end the A tier for me.
Yes, it does the same for me as well.
Okay. Okay. So let's move on to my QB9 and the beginning of the B tier. I wonder if this is going to be controversial. I feel like you and I are probably still going to be in agreement, but I wonder what the rest of the fantasy community thinks about this. I have Anthony Richardson here.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, so let me throw him up there on my screen. Um, this one, it's not so much like just Anthony Richardson, but the other guys in the tier. As we go through them, we'll kind of compare and contrast.
Hmm.
But obviously, the most athletic quarterback we've ever seen enter the NFL. He's an absolute freak. One of the strongest arms. He's incredibly fast. The rushing production is going to be there. He goes to what I think is probably the perfect fit. Like the best place that he could have gone in this year's draft. He gets to be coached by Shane Steichen, who we just saw develop Jalen Hurts. He's got a decent weapons group around him, a really good rushing attack there that he can come in and contribute to. And I think for him specifically, like there's a bunch of talk about him not being a very good passer, being raw, needing a bunch of time to develop. I think he's got one of the best like pocket presence of any quarterback in this draft class. Now, accuracy is a concern, consistency, mechanics are all concerns that we need to see improve for him to be a consistent fantasy producer. Um, but unlike Justin Fields, who we saw get sacked a ton, I don't think that's going to be an issue for Anthony Richardson. And so it's not going to be like a drive killer. And he's going to be able to continue staying on the field and continue racking up those rush yards.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think he's definitely going to be able to skedaddle, a little bit better than most
Oh, yeah.
people will, for sure. Also, he's just a freak of nature. Like, he's a huge guy. For as fast as he is, he's just an absolute freak of nature. Like you said, his
Yeah.
measurables were off the charts. So
Yeah.
he's just one of those guys you kind of got to take a chance on. Every video we've seen out of OTAs so far has been this guy doing throwing drills. So at the very least, it's always, social media accounts posting and people being like, oh, look, people are talking about accuracy issues, blah, blah, blah. Look, he's doing these drills. That's why he's doing the drills, guys. I don't. But the fact that they do have him out there doing them like that, and he is doing well, I do think he's going to exceed pretty well. I think Shane Steichen, like you said, he's been able to mentor quarterbacks like him, except he hasn't had a quarterback as athletic as him yet. So to see what
Yeah.
he can do with Anthony Richardson, I'm extremely excited. And he's one of those guys I could see easily flying up these rankings as well.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it's out of the question for him to be like a 900-yard rusher in his rookie season. And also, like, we just saw Jalen Hurts with the tush push or whatever put up, 13 rushing touchdowns last season.
Hmm.
Anthony Richardson is even bigger. Like, I don't see why they don't just employ the same strategy here in Indianapolis.
Absolutely. Only thing I could see them stopping is just because they have Jonathan Taylor. But it's like,
Yeah,
end of the day, you're going to get the ball in however you can get it in. And that's probably one of the best routes you got is Anthony Richardson on the QB sneak.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's go to your QB 10.
Yes, my QB 10 in this spot is Deshaun Watson, the tickler. I feel
Okay.
like it's too low for him now at this point for us to not have him on the board. So I think this is a good spot for him. I think if he gets back to anywhere near what he was when he was with the Texans, I see him obviously flying up this tier list a lot. He's still young. He's what, 26, 27
I
off the
think
top
he's
of my head?
27. Let me check.
Yeah, but Deshaun
Sean
Watson,
Watson,
still young.
27.7.
Okay, so about to turn 28 soon, but still on
Yeah.
the younger side, especially for a quarterback. We've seen him perform at the highest levels that quarterbacks can perform at. That's with and without elite weapons. I believe that year that he actually broke the Texans' passing yards record was the year that they did not have DeAndre Hopkins. So just keep that in mind that this guy can get it done with or without super elite weapons. I think all he had was really Will Fuller that year.
Yeah.
But when looking at Deshaun Watson and just the team that he's on now, the weapons group around him obviously has gotten better since he's left the Texans. He's got Amari Cooper now. He's got the rookie and Cedric Tillman. He's got Elijah Moore there, the new acquisition. Nick Chubb still in the backfield. Jerome Ford probably going to take a step up this year as well with Kareem Hunt gone. So just looking at the weapons group around Deshaun Watson. Oh, David Njoku also at tight end. So
Yep.
he does have a great weapons group around him. He's got everything he needs. It's just a matter if he can knock off the rust and sort of find that same footing that he had before. And any type of offseason indications, any type of news we've heard from the Browns have been showing that he's been doing nothing but knocking the rust off. So it's going to be exciting to see what he can do this year if he can take that step up. Because at the end of last season, he actually did step up quite a bit, get towards those. I believe he was like the QB5 for the last 6 weeks. He was somewhere in that QB5 range towards the end of last season. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head.
I don't know if it would have been for the last 6 weeks because he did get off to a fairly slow
It
start.
might have been
But
the last 4 or 3.
yeah, the last few weeks, his rushing floor was definitely high. He did have a 22-point game, an 18-point game. So yeah, he definitely improved as the season went on.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully they can just
Um,
step up in that this season as well.
yeah. So this is the first spot where we've disagreed.
Okay.
And honestly, I can definitely be swayed. I think these two guys are damn near interchangeable for me. I had Kyler Murray as my QB 10.
Okay.
But I can definitely see Deshaun Watson here. Just to add on to what you said, prior to last season, in every season of his career, he averaged over 20 fantasy points a game. Just an incredible start to his career. We're talking about him in the same light as Patrick Mahomes when those two guys first entered the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, if he can get back to anywhere near that type of level, we're talking about a top 5 dynasty quarterback, if not better than that. So I can absolutely see him here. It's just whether or not we're going to see the old version of him or not.
Absolutely.
Um, But yeah, for me, I had Kyler Murray as my QB 10. Again, none of these guys are without red flags being in this third tier here. Kyler Murray has dealt with injuries. Um, I'm not as concerned about that necessarily. That's just going to happen. I am a little bit worried. We've talked about job security a couple of times.
Hmm.
Guys that we know are going to have longevity in this. I'm slightly concerned about that for Kyler Murray, not because of the injuries, but just like his leadership. And I think some teams and some front offices have kind of soured on Kyler Murray in that regard, and we've heard them come out and publicly say that. We just saw DeAndre Hopkins, force his way out of Arizona potentially for those reasons, talking about he wants to play for a quarterback that really cares about the game and all that stuff. None of that's necessarily fantasy related, though. For Dynasty, you have to take it into consideration for longevity purposes. But for fantasy, Kyler has been fantastic. He's averaged over 20 fantasy points a game for the majority of his career so far. He's been fantastic on the ground and through the air. And I do expect that if he stays in Arizona, I do expect this team will improve drastically. Maybe not this year; they're going to be really bad this year, but the
Hmm.
following year. They have the chance to bring in like a Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft next year. They just added to their offensive line this year. They added a bunch of draft capital. So I do expect them to be on the rise. And if he does stick around in Arizona, that'll be to his benefit.
No, I absolutely agree. Also, I believe D Hop did say Kyler was one of the quarterbacks that did love the game. We know he loves the game too. Call of Duty,
Mm.
season 4 just
Oh my
dropped.
god.
Season
Yeah.
4 just dropped, so I'm sure Kyler Murray having a blast right now. But
Oh my goodness.
it it's like you said. The only thing that really ever holds me back too, the reason why I had Kyler Murray behind Deshaun Watson too, was leadership. I feel like
Yep.
this past year he did get bailed out with Cliff Kingsbury getting fired. People kind of realizing Cliff Kingsbury not the coach we thought he was. So
Fake sharp. Big
yeah.
time.
So hopefully with some stability at the coaching position, hopefully Kyler can kind of find his way, find that leadership, find his voice in the team, because maybe that
Right.
was something that was holding him back. We don't know. But
For sure.
it's definitely a concern, like you said. His maturity is a bit of a concern as well, but obviously that's something that's going to keep coming along as he gets older and older and figuring stuff out. So, in terms of
Yeah.
talent, I love Kyler Murray here. In terms of everything else, like security, it stands to be seen because, like you said, they got a lot of draft capital. This team's not going to be good this year. They've got the Texans pick, and they're not going to be good this year as well. So, next year there could be a shakeup, but I don't really see that happening too much, especially with how much the team put behind him. So hopefully Kyler Murray's still there to stay. But in terms of talent, absolutely he's right here. No matter where he ends up, I think he's still going to be great in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think that's worth mentioning too. Even if he does go somewhere else, it's hard. It would be hard for the situation to be worse than what Arizona has right now.
Hmm.
So it could be an improvement for him. But like you said, like it's very possible Arizona ends up with the number one pick, and I do think it'd be pretty difficult for a new coaching staff coming in to pass on Caleb Williams if he's sitting there.
I agree 100%. I
So
agree. So it's going to stand to be seen. I think even if
yeah,
Kyler Murray's decent this year and you get a chance at Caleb Williams, you still probably take Caleb
yeah,
Williams.
you probably do that for sure. All right, but yeah, so for me, I guess Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson are definitely interchangeable. It's hard for me to necessarily take a stance and rank one of them ahead of each other.
Hmm.
Um, I think I'm pretty firm with Anthony Richardson above both of those guys. Like I know I said that already, but like they're in the same tier. They're very close.
Hmm. But ceiling
But
wise, Anthony Richardson definitely
it's
better than Kyler Murray, and I'd say at this point, especially with the age gap as well, he clears Deshaun Watson too. So I
yeah,
definitely agree with that.
tough to beat. All right. And does that end the tier for you?
It does for me. Does it end the tier for you?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Okay.
It does. All right. So let's move on to our last tier here. Where are we going? The C tier? Yeah, we're going into C tier here. And like I said at the top of the video, it is a top 12 video, but we're not going to stop at 12. I believe this will be our 12th quarterback to start this C tier, and so wherever this tier ends is where we'll finish it out.
Hmm.
So Will, I'll let you kick us off here.
Yep. First quarterback I got down here in the C tier, I've got Tua Tagovailoa.
Okay.
I just feel, I just obviously I love the Dolphins as a team. They have one of the best weapons group, if not the best weapons group in all of the NFL with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Don't know who they have at tight end right now, to be honest with you. Who do they have at tight end?
Who do they have? They
I
just
don't.
let go of
I don't know if
what's his
they
face from Penn State.
I don't know if they have a tight end right now.
Think, bruh, hold on.
Well, I'm sure they
They
do,
have to
but
have a
like,
tight
you
end.
know what I mean. But
No, I
also,
know exactly what you mean.
also they got Devin A. Chain back there. There's been a lot of Dalvin Cook linkage to this team, but
Yeah,
obviously that's just speculation at this point, so can't really weigh on that too much. But in terms of just weapons group, in terms of the coaching there with Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa, it seems like it was a match. It's actually Tungo Vailoa or some shit like that, isn't it? I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm gonna keep pronouncing it like this. I'm sorry
I
if I
love it.
offend anybody. I just like
You're
saying it
good,
like
man.
that. But
Yeah,
it seems like that coaching quarterback pairing was sort of a match made in heaven. Whenever Tua was on the field, he was doing great things out there, like performing at a super high level, getting the ball
yeah,
out there to everybody. Drip plays were drawn up for Tua specifically, and it was just working perfectly. The biggest concern was injury, and it's
yeah,
still a huge concern for me. Me personally, I don't think Tua should be playing football right now, but the fact of the matter is he's out there. So
yeah.
we got to evaluate him for what he is. And when he's on the field, he's a great quarterback, and he's what this team needs. He's pretty much the perfect quarterback for this team. It's just a matter if he can stay out there, which is why he's kind of this low for me.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. No more concussions for Tua for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Hope all the best for him. You were right. They don't have a tight end. Their starting tight end is Durham Smythe right
Yeah.
now.
That's what I was like. I don't think they have anybody
So
notable.
yeah, Durham Smythe, Eric Saubert, Tyler Croft, and Elijah Higgins, who I think is actually sneaky for Dynasty, wide receiver originally out
Mm.
of Stanford, who they drafted and they're converting to tight end. I actually think he could be a decent producer in a few years.
You guys heard it here.
Um, yeah. Um, so this is another one where I disagreed, but only by one spot. And again, I do think they're interchangeable. I think you made a really good argument for Tua. He was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in all of football last year. His EPA per play was like off the charts. If you look at like the scatter plot with all the quarterbacks ranked on it in EPA, Tua was like sky high above everybody else. So he was absolutely balling. And like you said, yeah, fantastic weapons group. It's hard to not produce when you have guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle around you. Fantastic coaching staff with Mike McDaniel. Like they're only going to get better the more years that he's there. So I'd be fine with having him as the QB 12 as well. The guy that I had here was Dak Prescott.
I was between the two of them. I had
Yeah,
Dak in the very next spot right there.
yeah, but I think the same way that we said with Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson, I'm more than happy with these guys being interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott, we've seen just a career's worth of production and consistency. Dallas, since he's been there, has been a really high volume pass attack. Kellen Moore does leave, and I believe what's the head coach's name? Shoot.
Is it McCarthy?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy. I believe he is going to be taking over the play calling duties, which makes me a little bit nervous. He's more on the conservative side
Yeah, we
in
saw how
terms
that
of
went
like
in
rushing
Green
the
Bay.
ball. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't want to jump to too many conclusions. I'm hoping that we see things kind of continue with the status quo there in Dallas. Um, and if that is the case, I don't have any reason to believe that Dak is going to fall off from where he has been. Obviously, last year he dealt with the injury in the beginning of the season and then was a little rusty when he came back, threw a lot of interceptions. Wasn't quite the same player that he had been. But if you look at the underlying metrics, a lot of those mirrored what he had been doing for the rest of his career. And it was just, came down to variance, in my opinion, in terms of his lower performing season. So I expect him to come back to what he was. And yeah, with that, I'll gladly have him in this tier.
Absolutely. I agree with that as well. I like that.
Okay. And then for me, I have one more quarterback in this tier. I don't know if you have more than that or who it is, but I'll
Well,
pass to you.
no, no, no. I want you to fire away on this one. Then we can talk afterwards. We can figure some stuff out because I do want to hear
Wow.
this, and then because I don't know what to do with the rest of this tier. To be honest with you, I kind of got to this
Okay.
point and I hit a wall because I know there's
Okay.
more people that belong here, at least one other person, but I didn't know who to put. So I'm
For
interested to hear who
me,
you got.
yeah, for me it's Bryce Young.
Okay, okay, yeah, I like that. I like that.
I honestly like. There's not a whole lot to say. Like I think he was the best all around quarterback prospect in the draft. He goes number one overall. He goes to I think a really good coaching staff. I think he's got a really good group of mentors around him and people that are going to help him develop as a quarterback. I don't expect fantasy production early just because the weapons group isn't there. We're talking about what Jonathan Mingo,
Adam
Adam
Thielen, DJ
Thielen,
Chark.
yeah, Terrace Marshall. Like it's just not a very good group. They bring in Miles Sanders and they have a decent offensive line. Rookie quarterback. I expect them to run the ball a good amount his rookie year. But Bryce is really smart. I expect him to develop quickly, and as soon as they get a good weapons group around him, I expect him to excel in a similar vein to like a Joe Burrow type quarterback. I don't expect him to get necessarily all the way up to that level, but that type of play style. Um, and so, yeah, it's going to take a few years. And, you have the size concerns or whatever. So you can worry about that if you want to with longevity issues. But that's why I have him down here.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, I think because he's young, he's got the ability, he's got obviously the draft capital, he's got the
Yeah.
opportunity. I think everything there kind of matches up for him to be here, possibly rise up some of these ranks a little bit, but like you said, his
Yeah.
ceiling is kind of capped off by, his kind of lack of rushing production, stuff like that. Like, he can run the ball, but it's not a focus of his game. He's not an Anthony Richardson type player or Josh
Right.
Allen yeah. So I can definitely see that 100%.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been hammering home the past few videos
Hmm.
when talking about quarterbacks is that quarterback rushing isn't necessarily just about ability, it's about tendency.
Yeah.
So we've seen Bryce Young, like he is athletic, he can run when he gets open space, he's capable of it. But like in college, he had significantly less rush attempts and rushing yardage than even Joe Burrow did when he was at LSU. And I just expect that to continue to be the case coming into the NFL. He's going to choose to pass over run the vast majority of the time.
But to say, I think Bryce
Um,
Young he had 8 rushing touchdowns in like 3 years. So
yeah,
yeah, not a lot.
not very many. But yeah, so that'll do it for me. Is there anybody else that you want to consider in this tier?
There's nobody I really want to consider in this tier. There's going to be a lot of people I feel like in that next tier. Like if we had gone to the D tier, that's where we're going to get into like the Jared Goffs or the Daniel Jones stuff like that of the
Yeah,
video. I don't think they belong quite in like this C tier, which is why I was like I kind of hit a wall here because I didn't know who to
right.
throw in. But I love that Bryce Young edition because with that combination of everything he's got, he could end up rising his way up a little bit. But like you said, there is a ceiling on his play for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that was really smooth. We agreed on damn near everything there. I hope you guys enjoyed what we brought to you. Let us know down in the comments if you agree with us, if you disagree, if there's somebody that we underrated, overrated, any of
Hmm.
that good stuff. We appreciate all the comments and we respond to everything. Again, if you liked, drop a like. That would be fantastic. And subscribe so you can see all of our next videos coming down the road. We got Dynasty stuff. We got redraft stuff coming around the corner
Oh
as
yeah.
that approaches. So we're going to be getting you ready for the fantasy season. But yeah, Will, would you like to hit us with some more things before we get out of here?
Absolutely. Check out all those links in the description below. Check out our sponsors over at Dynasty Owner. Check out our partners, the Fantasy Football League winners, and our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy. And also check out our sponsor, Do Numbers, for some great merch, apparel, clothing, all that sort of good stuff. And check out a link down below for our Discord. Join that and become a part of our
Yes,
community. We got some great people in there giving advice, having conversations, trying to figure some things out. We're in there as well, having conversations with people, just having a good time. So if you really want to voice your opinion, really want to get stuff out there to us directly, that's the best way to do it, is to contact us through the Discord. But also leave those comments down below because, like Eric said, we go through every single comment that's there. So with that being said, if you guys made it this far into the video, as always, we love you, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
peace.